It was a rainy evening. I was driving my truck along Highway 40, engaged in my routine trucking job. I've been on the road for hours, heading towards Springfield, Oregon. I can't say I haven't crossed this road countless times before, but I felt something different that night. It was raining heavily, and the distant sounds of nature seemed to be replaced by the soothing rhythm of raindrops on the roof of my truck. As the night wore on, I tried to focus on the road, but my thoughts kept returning to an anecdote I heard from a fellow truck driver at the last stop. And he told a story about a stretch of cursed road not far from where I was. Strange things were said to have happened there, such as ghosts appearing on the side of the road and then disappearing when approached. I didn't have much faith in such things. I decided to take a break, hoping to rest a bit. I arrive at a pickup truck stop, nestled in the tall trees that line the highway. The rain was falling on the roof, creating a calm atmosphere. I parked my truck, turned off the engine, leaned back in my seat, and rubbed my weary eyes as I sat there, trying to collect my thoughts. Something strange caught my eye in the rearview mirror. There was another truck parked a few blocks away from my truck, its lights off. I didn't notice it when it arrived, but it looked old and worn out, as if it hadn't been moved in years. The cabin was dark, yet I could make out the faint silhouette of a man in the driver's seat, looking straight ahead. My heart raced as I tried to convince myself he was just another trucker taking a break like me. But there was an unsettling quality to the way he sat there, motionless in the dark. I chose to get out of my van to stretch my legs, hoping to get a better view of the individual and calm my mind. When I came out, the rain hit me like a cold shower. The atmosphere was strangely fresh, and the mist seemed to mix with the rain, creating an ethereal atmosphere. I wandered around the front of my pickup truck, trying not to seem overtly curious about the other truck. My heart was racing as I slowly approached the old truck. I was a few yards away when I noticed something that struck me with fear. The license plate of the truck was covered in what looked like dried blood, and the cab windows were stained red. My instincts told me to flee, but my legs felt like they had turned to jelly. I stood still, unable to take my eyes off this dreadful sight. That's when I heard a deep guttural growl coming from the cab of the truck, followed by the sound of labored breathing. A chill ran down my spine. I knew I needed to get myself off that truck as fast as I could. As I was retracing my steps, I heard the rusty door creak open, but I refused to look back. I ran to my device, fumbling for the keys as I struggled to open the door. Once I was safely inside, I closed the doors, fired the engine, and snarled out of the truck stop, leaving behind a trail of rain-soaked earth as I speeded along the highway. I felt like something was following me. The rain had grown so hard that the visibility was limited to a few feet, but I insisted on putting as much distance as possible between me and that truck stop. Every now and then, I swear, I caught a glimpse of the rusty pickup truck's faint figure in the rearview mirror, but it vanished whenever I tried to focus on it. My heart was racing, and my hand was slipping on the steering wheel. I couldn't tell if my mind was deceiving me or if the truck was really after me. The hours passed and the sun began to rise, casting a faint glow on the diminishing rain that hung in the road. I was exhausted and nervous, yet I was so afraid to stop. Every muscle in my body ached with tension, and my head was pounding, but I knew if I stopped, even for a moment, that entity might catch up with me. As the day wore on, the rain finally began to recede, giving me a clearer view of the road. I still had the feeling that someone was following me, but there was no longer any trace of the old truck in my rearview mirror. I tried to convince myself it was all just a hallucination of exhaustion, but deep down, I admitted that wasn't the truth. Finally, I arrived in Springfield, exhausted and apprehensive. I got to the first truck stop I came across and parked my truck. I needed to rest, but the thought of closing my eyes and making myself vulnerable to whatever was out there filled me with dread. I chose to contact my supervisor and inform him of the situation, hoping he would offer me some direction or solace. I recounted everything, from the mysterious truck at the truck stop to the feeling of being hunted. They listened attentively, never interrupting or questioning my account. After a pause, he spoke in a sad and serious tone. He revealed that he had heard similar stories from other truck drivers over the years, and that there was an unwritten rule among them to avoid stopping at the designated truck stop on Highway 40. It was believed to be cursed, and those who stopped there would be plagued by a malevolent presence that would shadow them for the rest of their lives. He suggested that I take some time to rest, and assured me that he would find a substitute for my way in the meantime. I followed his advice. I have never visited this part of Highway 40 since. It's been years, and yet I can still see whatever was haunting me that night, keeping a low profile, waiting for the time for me to let my guard down. I will never be completely free of it, but I have learned to live with fear and always listen to my instincts on the road. Thanks for following. If you find these stories resonating with you and you're dying for more, please subscribe and support this channel. There are more stories waiting for your ears. I found myself in the heart of an unfamiliar countryside, cruising along the winding roads that intersected rural Illinois at a steady pace. My name is Alex Turner, and I've been working as a truck driver for over a decade. While it might not be the most thrilling job, it affords me the opportunity to explore our breathtaking nation, keep my finances stable, and meet my basic needs. On that particular night, much like any other during my long-haul journeys, one minor, yet impactful detail stood out. I had orchestrated a spontaneous surprise for my childhood friend, Sarah Mitchell. Over time, Sarah and I grew apart as life led us in different directions post-graduation. However, we managed to sustain our warm connection through social media and occasional phone chats. Learning that she had settled in a charming town not far from my route, I decided to pay her an unannounced visit. As the clock neared midnight, I found myself at a small convenience store in Sarah's town, a peaceful village where little seemed to occur. Making a quick stop to grab a late-night snack and refuel my truck, I texted Sarah for her address, suggesting we catch up over a couple of drinks at her place. Little did I know that this seemingly ordinary pit stop would trigger a sequence of events that would reshape my life. Enjoying crispy chips and hot coffee to fend off the evening chill, I noticed two teenage girls conversing near the gas pumps outside. Engaged in their discussion, they occasionally glanced my way. Their presence intrigued me, as it was unusual to see people out so late in this quiet town. Curiosity overshadowed caution, prompting me to approach and offer assistance. Need a hand? Almost instantly, their chatter ceased as they regarded me skeptically. After exchanging uncertain glances, one of them spoke up. Actually, we could use a ride across town. It's not too far from here. Internal debate ensued as I weighed the pros and cons of giving two strangers a lift in my truck. While a sense of caution lingered, I rationalized that it was a short distance, and extending help to those in need was a good deed. Ultimately, my altruistic side prevailed, and I agreed to give them the ride they sought. As we set off, the girls wasted no time expressing their gratitude for avoiding the dark streets at night. They shared stories about recent incidents of crime within the neighborhood, including assaults and thefts. Though their tales sent shivers down my spine, I found comfort in knowing they were no longer navigating these dangerous streets alone. Just as these thoughts crossed my mind, an unexpected development unfolded. A mysterious black car appeared in my rearview mirror, tailing us uncomfortably close and blinding us with its high beams. Anxious, I turned to my passengers and asked about the car. Any idea who that could be? My voice wavered as anxiety crept in. One of the girls exchanged worried glances before responding. Honestly, we're not sure, but it's been following us for a while. Determined to ensure their safety, I maintained my composure and focused on reaching our destination. As we approached a desolate area near an abandoned warehouse, a startling twist occurred. The black car accelerated, positioning itself in front of us in a reckless manner. My heart raced as I slammed the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. The driver's door swung open, and a tall figure dressed entirely in black emerged. With aggressive strides, he approached my truck, brandishing a menacing crowbar above his head. His voice echoed menacingly through the night air, but the words were indistinct from my vantage point. Adrenaline surged through me as panic set in. Desperate for assistance, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, seeking to buy time and make sense of this bewildering situation. Rolling down my window slightly, I shouted at the approaching man, "What do you want?" His eyes narrowed, and his voice turned darker as he growled, "You know exactly what I want." I was utterly confounded. His threatening approach made no sense, and I couldn't discern any connection to the unfolding scenario. The terrified girls huddled together in their seats, clearly unfamiliar with the man who had accosted us. As I tried to process the situation, the wail of police sirens shattered the tension-filled atmosphere. Seizing the opportunity, I floored the gas pedal and sped away, driven by an innate desire for safety. It wasn't until I reached Sarah's secluded home that we finally felt a measure of security for the night. The police arrived soon after we did, questioning each of us individually. Through these interviews, we learned that the man who had threatened us was none other than Samuel Reynolds, a name notorious locally for his extensive criminal record and ruthless behavior. Reynolds was now leading a gang that targeted unsuspecting travelers along secluded roads, committing robberies, assaults, and other atrocious acts. He enlisted young girls as accomplices in his schemes, instructing them to promise rewards to potential victims. The police apprehended the two girls. It's hard to imagine what those girls might have done if the police hadn't intervened. The girls had pocket knives each. These tactics showcased Reynolds' manipulative nature and revealed the lengths to which he'd go to exert control over others. Fortunately, no harm befell us on that night. Through a combination of quick thinking and sheer luck, I managed to escape. Yet the memory of that chilling night's events lingers, a reminder of how close we came to becoming pawns in Samuel Reynolds' sinister game. This experience taught me to be more cautious when traveling alone, and to acknowledge that not everyone we encounter has good intentions. I work as a truck driver, and I've been doing it for almost 4 years now. It's a job I've grown to love, but it's definitely not a career for everyone. Let me share the most frightening experience I've had so far, which happened just earlier this year. It was roughly 7 months ago, and at that time, I was completing a routine delivery in my big rig. When night fell, my usual practice was to find a spot to park at a truck stop. My truck comes equipped with a sleeping area, allowing me to rest behind the driver's seat. The sleeper area includes a bed and some extra storage space, which comes in handy. On this particular night, after a day of driving, I pulled into an unfamiliar truck stop to grab some rest. To my surprise, the place was quite deserted. Only a handful of other trucks were scattered around the lot. This truck stop was also connected to a rest area for regular travelers and their vehicles. I stepped inside the truck stop to freshen up with a quick shower and pick up a bite to eat. After a full day of maneuvering the truck under the warm sun, a shower always did wonders to rejuvenate me. The food choices at these stops weren't always gourmet, but they kept me fueled for the journey. After spending a while inside, I returned to my truck to have a meal and eventually get some sleep. As I dined, I entertained myself with YouTube videos on my smartphone. About half an hour later, with fatigue setting in, I settled into my bed. I turned off the lights, set my phone's alarm, and powered it down. The truck's interior became pitch dark and tranquil, a perfect setting for me to drift into slumber. However, just as I began to relax with my eyes shut, I detected a faint sound. It was barely audible, making it difficult to pinpoint its origin. It seemed to emanate from outside my truck. I wondered why anyone would be present at this hour, particularly since I'd chosen a parking space with ample distance from other trucks. Straining my ears, I continued to listen. Gradually, I realized the noise wasn't external. It was internal. The sounds were coming from within my truck, yet despite my focus, I couldn't decipher their nature. I sat up in bed, attempting to discern the source of the enigmatic sounds. Silence enveloped me for a while, then the noise returned, seeming to originate about 5 feet away. My gaze shifted to the closet. A small closet occupied a corner of my sleeping area, and it became evident that the noises emanated from there. A mix of shock and curiosity impelled me to switch on the light and move toward the closet. I flung the door open, only to be confronted by an unexpected sight. A person, seemingly a woman, stood inside. Though she hadn't looked in my direction, I could discern her long hair. Stunned, I instinctively retreated and slammed the closet door shut. My voice shook as I shouted at her, demanding an explanation for her presence in my truck. Initially met with silence, I watched as the door creaked open, revealing her identity more clearly. A woman stood within the closet. Before I could reiterate my demand for her to leave, She hurled an object at me, an item of my own, a hat. In rapid succession, another hat followed suit. With swift movements, she sprang out of the closet, tossed yet another hat my way, and dashed toward the front of the truck. With haste, she yanked open the driver's side door and made a break for it. As I exited the truck in pursuit, I strained to track her escape route, but she vanished into the distance. Resignedly, I returned to my truck, ensuring all doors and windows were secured, and finally returned to bed. To this day, the mystery of how she infiltrated my truck remains unsolved. It's plausible that I had unintentionally left a door unlocked, though that seems improbable. I count myself fortunate that I detected her presence when I did. The intentions behind her actions continue to baffle me. Was she out to harm me, pilfer my belongings, or something else entirely? I can only hope that she never repeats this unsettling episode with anyone else.